Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new revenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, "Don't Stiff a Tow Truck Driver, It's Bad Parenting." Not me, but my brother a couple years ago. He is a mechanic and tow truck operator in a small town. A while back, he gets a call for a job. A guy wants to buy his son a used pickup truck, but it's in another town and needs some work. The client says it's a lot of work apparently, but it should be a fun dad-son project. He hires my brother to pick it up. My brother gets out there and it's in surprisingly good condition. The big thing is the tires are shot. He tows it to his shop, calls the dad, and explains he actually got a pretty good deal. Brother offers to install some new tires and do a little minor work and the truck should be ready to drive. Dad happily agrees and gives the work the go-ahead. 2 days later and the truck is running. My brother takes it over to the house and leaves the bill on the seat. 5 or 6 days go by with no word from Dad, so my brother calls in to ask how the truck's running. "Great," says Dad. So my brother asks about expecting payment. Dad says he'll be in first thing in the morning. The next morning rolls around, no Dad. Same thing for a few more days. My brother reaches him again, and now gets a little run around, with Dad trying to say the truck's not running so well. Dad doesn't really know vehicles, though, so his bluff isn't really working. My brother says he's willing to work on other problems or recommend other mechanics, but he still needs payment for work already delivered. At this point, Dad starts mumbling something about how he won't be scammed and hangs up. Dad ducks my brother's calls for a week. So, my brother calls the local police to explain what he's going to do, then calls me to ask if I want to see something funny. I say sure, and he picks me up and takes me to this guy's house in the afternoon on a Friday. The truck is parked on the street and has been driven recently. A police car pulls up, at which point my brother says hi to them, then starts loading the truck onto his tow truck. After a few minutes of beeping, teenage son comes out of the house, freaking out. He's a brand new driver and thinks he parked wrong or something, but my brother explains that his dad didn't pay. Son goes inside to call his dad. My brother loops around the block for a better angle, then backs the truck completely into the driveway. He pulls out, lifts the truck on jacks, removes the tires, then lowers the whole thing onto a couple 2x4s, then puts another bill on the windshield for the time he spent at the house. We all then leave, and my brother closes up his shop before hearing anything. He doesn't hear anything until Wednesday next week, and it's a call from Mum. Apparently, Dad spent a few days lying to his family saying my brother was trying to scam him, but eventually fessed up. Mum was fuming, because her car was blocked in the garage the whole time by the truck. She came down in person and paid my brother cash for everything, plus more to come back and reinstall the tires. The best part, unfortunately, I didn't get to see, but Mum made Dad apologize to my brother in front of their son when he reinstalled the tires. The next one is titled, "Try to Run Me Out of My Lane? Enjoy higher insurance, jerk." Commute from my job back home was 30 minutes. I have to take a major interstate that eventually splits off into Maine and a bypass. In the middle of rush hour, it can be pretty frantic trying to get across 6 lanes with semis, cars with trailers, etc. I'm originally from a very large city, so it's no big deal to me. I usually just go, whatever, and try to give people room to merge, lane change, etc. But every once in a while, you get that one driver that is absolutely going to run you out of your lane so that they can get one more lane over. It was my habit to get in the far left lane towards the cement median wall. It gets me out of the way of all the nonsense and puts me in the lane I want for the split. This particular day was a nice rainy one. Traffic flowing, a little heavy when up comes this white SUV towing a trailer of some kind. Because of the traffic, there's just no way to safely keep a good distance between you and next car ahead of you because everyone will rush in and cut you off, causing you to hit your brakes constantly and do that gas brake steering combo to keep from hitting people. This SUV decides he's going to get his front tires ahead of my bumper and then merge over, hoping to force me into the shoulder and cement wall or to lock up my brakes at 60 miles per hour to avoid him and his trailer. Not going to happen. If I'm going to get into a wreck, I'm going to make damn sure that the person responsible is around so the officer reporting the accident can cite him instead of me in a single car accident with no proof as to what happened. I drive a nice and expensive powerful beastie and hit the gas so that he couldn't edge his front end in without sideswiping me. He's screaming so loud that I can hear him through his window and mine despite the rain. That's what you get, butthole. Oh look, the traffic in your lane is slowing down so you'll be behind me in the next lane, I won't have to be bothered by you again. Wrong. He tries the same thing with the car behind me. He won't give him the time of day either and locks him out of the lane. Seriously, dude, it's raining, the road is slick and as far as I can see, you pretty much just tried to kill 2 people during rush hour at 60 miles per hour. White SUV hits his brakes hard. He manages to get into the space behind this other car that was left open when he hit his gas too. SUV hits the gas and whips it into my lane 2 cars behind me. Remember, the guy behind has just hit his gas and is coming up on me pretty quick, but not so quick that he'll hit me. The thing is that traffic is slowing down again and the SUV is bearing down on the car behind me. Yes, white SUV hit the gas and whipped it in while traffic was slowing down. I hit the brakes in a responsible manner until I'm at 10 miles per hour and then stand on them. No squeals, just stopping really fast. Guy behind me had managed to get a decent distance between us, so he actually had some safety room. The SUV, however, was right on this guy's butt, still screaming at me and the other car. Large rear view mirrors can be awesome. So the car behind me suddenly has to stop. He manages and still keeps a couple feet between me and him until less than screech thump greater than. I smile as I see the white SUV rear end the car behind me and the white SUV driver practically goes nuclear. I'm surprised he didn't have an aneurysm right there. I felt kind of bad for the guy behind me, but it's always the fault of the driver in the rear in instances like this, and the other driver's testimony to the officer reporting it would have been particularly damning. Enjoy the ticket, the court costs, time to go to court, damages, and higher insurance rates, butthole. The next one is titled, Shot Up House is the Price for Screwing with Retirement. Cast of characters: Jim, owner of the property; Betty, his wife; Kirsten, daughter of Jim; me, Tilda, Betty's sister; Larry, Tilda's husband; Sonny, daughter of Tilda and Larry; Larry Jr., Larry and Tilda's son; Mike, Larry and Tilda's son. Backstory: many years ago in rural Appalachia and coal country lived a cluster of families on a holler. Jim and Betty owned a mobile home and had their daughter Kirsten with them. This mobile home was 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom, but it was sufficient enough for shelter. During the middle 1980s, a recession hit Appalachia hard, and Jim found work in another part of the country. In moving, he approached Larry and Tilda to look after the mobile home and collect rent for anyone that wanted to lease the mobile home. A rent amount was agreed to and would be adjusted for inflation and the cost of living for the area. The money was to be deposited into a savings account except for the money needed for necessary repairs and receipts kept. Jim and Betty trusted their siblings with this and moved, trusting that this money would be part of their retirement fund. I was privy to these conversations but did not pay that much attention to them at the time. Shortly after leaving Appalachia, a renter was found, and Jim and Betty were glad to know that something was coming about from the land in their home area. Then Mike moved into the mobile home, and Jim stipulated that the rental agreement did not change even with his nephew renting the mobile home. After Mike moved out, Sonny moved in and stayed for several years. Betty asked Tilda several times about the rent, knowing Sonny was very unreliable with rent in the past, and was assured that between Section 8 and food stamps that the rent was being paid on time, and there were no issues. A few repairs had been done, but the receipts were stored in the safe deposit box where the savings account was. Fast forward a few more years, Sonny finally moves out, and there are a few more renters, and then the taxes are not getting paid. The mobile home will not pass for Section 8 any longer. As we, Jim, Betty, and I, have been told repairs had been made over the years, we find this odd and inquire again to Tilda, who states this was all a misunderstanding. Once again, Betty trusts her sister and is relieved when we get the tax receipt in the mail. This is very important later. Another few years pass, and Tilda dies. Jim and Betty attend the funeral, and Betty makes a gesture to assist with some of the expenses. Larry agrees, and Betty requests access to the savings account that should have at least tens of thousands of dollars by this point, not including interest, to only find out it has never existed. All of the paperwork has been fraudulent and/or forged. Remember that tax receipt? Another forgery. Betty refused to fight, she had just lost her sister. Still, Jim is livid, as am I. Sunny was always abusive to me, and to find out she had been living off my parents for free while receiving Section 8 for rent and getting food stamps sent me over the edge, on top of the missing retirement funds. Cue revenge. So, knowing everything was fraudulent from the beginning, Jim and I attempted legal means first to get revenge on this thief. We were met with walls of red tape, and with states separating us, it was an uphill battle with a slim chance of winning. Plus, the attorney fees would drain any winnings and then more. First, I put my piece into action. Against Sunny, I filed claims of fraud against the Section 8 anonymously and SNAP benefits, given that there was absolutely no proof of rent being paid to the homeowner or the custodian. Larry was stupid enough not to write out a fraudulent receipt for when his daughter lived there. Next, I filed against Larry for tax evasion and Social Security fraud, since Sunny was claiming to be paying him the rent money via Section 8. This was income. Since he was not claiming this income on his tax forms, he was double-dipping into the Social Security system and avoiding paying taxes. I did the same for the time Mike was paying rent. Although he did not claim government benefits, he just paid rent. The next stage was to notify their local church about the shady dealings with family. Their faith is big on lay ministers and credibility. I told anyone and everyone I could from the church directory about what had happened. I even showed the fake tax receipt. The last bit was the most nefarious. After ensuring that Larry was visiting Sunny and the house he owned was empty, a rented car was used, and while Betty drove, Jim used a .22 rifle to shoot holes in the roof, the AC compressor, the garage doors, and anything that was laying in the yard and not immediately noticeable. We wanted the burn to last, so no windows were shot out or anything evident from the start showed. Aftermath. Sunny is now being investigated for multiple charges or fraud. Her side business has been closed due to the sweeping allegations that money will not be allocated as intended. Her applications for small business loans and COVID funds have been denied. Criminal charges are being whispered, but I do not think anything will come about with that portion. Larry has been found guilty of overpayment by the Social Security Administration and no longer receives benefits. He now lives with Sunny and no longer has his truck, camper, boat, or ATVs. Unfortunately, once again, criminal charges are not pending. Larry Jr. has moved into the old home that was shot up. The roof had several places where hail or other debris punched through and made it leak. The siding had similar damage. Some of the bullets, and they finally figured out what it was, pierced some of the old PVC, plastic plumbing. He has spent a fortune fixing the roof, plumbing, and siding where a lot of little holes were. I do not know if he has tried the AC yet, and I will be delighted to find out if it malfunctions as severely as I hope. The next one is titled, "Be a Dick to Me and I'll Make Sure You Lose Millions of Dollars, Your Home, Car, and Your Reputation." So this happened about 10 years ago. I used to work for a technology company in a government incubator. It was a building that helped start-up companies by offering very cheap rent. One of the companies was an animation company. The owner was a complete douchebag. Whenever you would run into him, he was always a complete dick. Anyone that knew him hated him. It was a small company, only 4 to 5 staff members for the first couple of months. Honestly, I don't even know how he survived that long. The animators were terrible. And by terrible I mean, what the fuck did I just watch? Terrible. But this guy was an amazing salesman. He managed to sell himself and his company to a hip-hop group in California. Being from a fairly small city in Canada, Halifax, this was a big deal. It made the business sections in the newspapers, and he even won an award for top 50 CEOs in the region. The new contract landed him millions of dollars with around $1.6 million upfront. But he didn't have enough staff to take on this new animated mini-series. He immediately hired approx 20 additional animators. All naive students right out of college. After a couple of weeks, his new staff still wasn't being paid. I knew a couple of people that worked there, including one of the original 5, who was receiving a small paycheck, and asked her what was the deal. She told me that he said he didn't have any money and that the money was coming soon. He somehow convinced most of the animators to continue working for free. He insisted that if they stuck around they would all become rich and it would make all their personal portfolios look amazing. Considering most of these kids had no experience, they didn't quit. Once I found out about his claim of having no money, I contacted a local magazine. It's a political magazine that likes to report on businesses and politicians that are corrupt. They emailed me back and I told them everything I knew about this animation company and what the owner was doing. Well, the magazine did some digging and published an article about the owner. After their investigation, they had learned that the CEO had in fact received $1.6 million up front for the project. But instead of investing it into the company, he spent it all on himself, including a new home, valued over $500,000, new cars, etc. You can only imagine what happened next. Pretty much every employee quit the day after the article ran. The group from California sued him shortly afterwards because they invested that money and got nothing back. The CEO was taken to court. He was sued by 7 of his previous employees, $31,000 plus awarded to each employee. He lost his home, car and was now seen as a joke in the industry. After all this, he moved to a different province, but things got worse. He had to file for bankruptcy, claiming $248,000 in liabilities. One of my ex-employees recently got a job at the same magazine. I asked him if he could look through their archives to see if the information I had leaked to them is what caused their investigations. Sure enough, it all started because of my email correspondence with their editor. The last one is titled, "Ooh, so you've got strong political backers? You're still going down." Background, this story takes place in Asia, not the US or any other Western country. My wife, late 20s, is working in a newly set up government branch office of only about 20 people, which by virtue of its nature requires a lot of interaction and support from high-ranking politicians and the grassroots. Most of her colleagues are thus seniors and retirees with a lot of clout in their respective communities and strongly recommended, backed by their areas, are sort of equivalent of a mayor to join the office. More background, when my wife just joined, there was this particular guy, whom we shall call Jack. Jack was in his 60s, coming out of retirement and was charismatic as hell. He was the undeniable alpha male in the office and had the respect and support of almost all other colleagues, thanks to him generously buying everyone in his group lunch almost every day. The relatively younger, 30s to 40s, ladies even called him Papa Jack or some other endearing term. Even the boss gave him great leeway. Jack could tell off the boss during meetings and the boss would just suck it up. Now at this point, all we knew is that Jack was charismatic AF, one of the pastors of a megachurch, even, and had the support of a very high-ranking politician. In fact, Jack was apparently very rich and had no need to work this job but was there due to politics. Also why the boss, who had no political backing, gave him that much leeway. I was in between jobs at this time and helped my wife out at her office from time to time, cultivating a pretty good relationship with her boss. First time I was at her office, Jack came over with his posse, sized me up by asking lots of personal questions and made some jokes about me. Immediately it rubbed me the wrong way and he gave me the impression that he was an arrogant prick. However, I gave him the benefit of doubt as the other colleagues were quick to praise him despite his loud mouth. The first time I worked directly with him, however, shattered any illusions I had about his competency. This guy was horribly inept at his work and got away with it all the time. My wife even told me that she was unhappy about how he would make jokes about her or even poke her in the belly or arms and comment on her putting on weight. She, however, still gave him the benefit of doubt as he mentioned that he saw her as a daughter and perhaps being childish was just part of his joker attitude. The incident, couple months later, it was Jack's birthday and most of the office, except the boss, attended after work. My wife got him a gift, as did everyone else, and he thanked her by plying her with expensive wine. Now, my wife is not a good drinker and everyone in the office knew it but was still pressured into drinking. Towards the end of the party, he offered to drive my wife and some other colleagues staying nearby home. My wife agreed, as it was in a group and it was way too late, expensive to go by public transport and her cell phone was dead. However, instead of dropping my wife off first as her house was the nearest, he ended up dropping everyone else first and drove her somewhere deserted instead of home. He then sexually harassed her, saying that he thought she was sexy, admitted to purposely plying her with alcohol and that he really wanted to touch her. My wife was massively drunk but thankfully fended off his advances and repeatedly asked to be driven home. Perhaps also driven by her latent unhappiness about the way he treats her at work. She reminded him of his religious work and his being a grandfather, such that he finally gave up and dropped her off somewhere not deserted, whereby she walked home and quickly called me. I rushed over and she related the whole incident, still tipsy AF. I called up her relatively good friend at work, whom I thought would be trustworthy, but the spineless fellow advised not to go against Jack and just let it go since nothing happened. Fine. Time to plot my revenge myself. The corporate compromise, the next day, I made a big show out of asking her boss out to discuss something. Jack was noticeably on leave, and the rest of the office was also acting oddly. I was surprised that her boss believed me right off the bat, since he said he had spotted Jack leering at young women all the time and that Jack had a reputation for being a philanderer. Jack was apparently not independently rich too. He was supported generously by his rich wife, who turned a blind eye to his side activities. Why? Because she was much younger than him and he had supported her through college with his pay back then. Now that she's successful, she feels that she owes it to him. However, Bossman was apparently scared of the political repercussions from taking action against Jack, but promised to keep an eye on him and let my wife Telly commute to work instead. Still, Bossman had to inform his boss as part of protocol, who totally lost his crap. As an ex-military guy and new to this job, this guy was hungry for blood and hadn't yelled at anyone in years. So Jack was basically called in and interrogated until he admitted to getting her drunk, but maintained that he only wanted to talk to her about the problems they were having at work, with no sexual intention. With no evidence and having a crap ton of political pressure harping on this point, ex-military boss could do nothing about this guy either. So he said we either had to make a police report so that he could act, or accept a half-assed private apology from Jack, restricted to only what he admitted to. No way in hell was I going to accept that. Ex-mil boss came up with some other alternatives, such as transferring my wife out, but she did nothing wrong, but nothing was acceptable to me except totally neutering this guy. Fire his butt or destroy his life, such that he would have no way of preying on my wife or the other young women he worked with. Later I would come to know that Jack had told everyone that my wife was trying to seduce him for his money, but he rejected her. He ruined her reputation to save himself and the bosses couldn't do crap about it. Nobody sullies my wife's reputation and gets away with it. The Revenge Part 1 Social Isolation I knew where my revenge would hit him the hardest, his pride. I countered, demanding that Jack make a public apology in the office for what happened that night. As promised, he would not be obliged to apologize for anything he did not admit to, including sexual harassment. In fact, I told him that he could just apologize without any reason given. I didn't need one. Jack tried to weasel his way out of this, but even his backer couldn't deny such a simple, reasonable request. And apologize he did. Thanks to his own pre-poisoning of the well of public opinion, most of the office saw through his lies. Why would he be forced to apologize if he did nothing wrong? What was he even apologizing for? Why can't it be said outright? Immediately after, the office was split, half sided with my wife, while half stuck with their beloved Papa Jack, who could do no wrong. The mutters and gossip against him grew steadily though, as his background and past philandering reputation started leaking out. I might have been part of these leaks. Who knows? In the end, the cognitive dissonance and/or their willingness to be associated with a pervert for free lunches lost out to public opinion. Soon, Jack found himself increasingly isolated and eating lunch with only his work partner. The alpha male was neutered, nobody took his bragging seriously, he had no pack of fans anymore, nobody was picking up the slack of his incompetent work except his partner, who was backed by the same politician. The Revenge Part 2 Spectacular Career End. I spoke to Jack during one of his lonely lunches, telling him that he had only one choice, to resign quietly. I knew this would hurt Jack's pride the most. So Jack did not go quietly. He set about messing up the office, shredding important documents, damaging equipment, etc. I went straight to his partner and told him that there were documents missing and having covered for him, he would be liable for any sabotage in the upcoming audit. His partner tried to pin it on me, but I had already extracted and backed up the security tapes showing Jack shredding the documents literally behind his partner's back. His partner, now burdened with Jack's mess and about to get audited thanks to me whispering in Bossman's ear, had to rat Jack out to the politician to save himself. The politician quickly distanced himself publicly from Jack and more than likely told him to hand in his resignation before the audit. Jack was now entirely cut off. No job, no political backer, no friends at work. The only thing he had now was his wife, kids and grassroots community reputation. Was I done? Not by a long shot. The Revenge Part 3 Stealing his wallet. I knew his wife would not care about Jack's philandering ways and his kids probably already knew anyway. However, the wife would be concerned if he was spending her money all willy-nilly. I volunteered to send the usual office goodbye card to Jack, but mistakenly addressed it to his wife. Oops, careless me. Most colleagues adding generic messages such as, "all the best," to it. But I added an anonymous message telling him how we missed the lavish meals and parties we had with him before his retirement and all the good times, while also stating that how all the ladies miss their papa. Never heard any news about him for months, so I assumed the wife had ignored the message. Until yesterday. The Revenge Part 4 Goodbye, Reputation. Opened the papers to see that dear Papa Jack was imprisoned for a year due to some minor offense. Dug deeper and found out that Jack did indeed have his allowance cut by his wife. Unable to sustain his lavish lifestyle, he turned to crime. I found out from the grapevine that he had actually done some pretty major stuff, but somehow managed to get it down to a minor offense barely footnoted in the papers, perhaps by the politician not wanting to be associated negatively with a former right-hand person. Was I done? Yay, I suppose this would do for now. Thanks for listening.